The royal family is in crisis as the king's top aide, Sir Clive Alderton, quits after a very vicious battle behind the scenes about whether Prince Harry and Meghan Markle should have a place going forward in the British royal family. Sir Clive Alderton, who Prince Harry referred to as the Wasp in his autobiography Spare, has, I believe, been standing up for what is right when it comes to Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, saying that it is absolutely essential that they do have no future role in the British royal family. His deputy, Theo Rycroft, has for some time, as we have reported on this show, been propagating for an alternative route, a reunion, a return to the fold. And King Charles has sided with him because King Charles is weak when it comes to Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. And again, I'm honest with you about that. I was the first to report that the king had terminal cancer, and I understand from a human perspective why he desperately needs to feel like he is returning Prince Harry to the royal fold so he can be seen and have a legacy as a great uniter, as someone who puts family first, forgiveness first, blood first. But it's a mistake, okay? Just like it was a mistake when King Charles decided to return Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and Sarah Ferguson to the fold. This is a mistake. Briefing to the Sun newspaper that you're offering up Buckingham Palace, the spiritual home of the British monarchy, to the two most hated people connected to the British royal family, and Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, is a mistake. And Clive Alderton knew it was a mistake. At 59 years old, Sir Clive Alderton, a healthy, vibrant man, is some type of decrepit figure who has to go and retire the moment he turns 60. Wake up! Welcome to the real world. It's 2026. People don't retire if things are going well, when they're in one of the most powerful jobs in the world. As is often the case, he has been forced out because there is a significant fundamental disagreement between him and the king. There are some people who want to believe that talking about this or questioning this in some ways makes you anti-monarchy or anti-royal family. Well, I put it to you that it's quite the opposite. I mean, if I just shut up about what Meghan Markle was really doing behind the scenes of the British royal family, I think it would have been a lot worse. If I just shut up about the fact that she was lying about racism within the British royal family, it would have been a lot worse. Actually, sunlight is the best disinfectant. These debates about whether Prince Harry and Meghan Markle should return need to be taking place in public, because the king should be listening to his subjects on that matter, just like the king should be listening to his subjects on the matter of Christianity versus the Islamic faith, which is a whole other story, which we won't get into today. But you understand the point that I'm making. Let me bring in Paula Frolick of Paula Frolick Uncensored. So, Paula, as you can tell, I'm quite passionate about this today because I find it pretty frustrating that people seem to believe that real reporting means that in some way you are turning on the British royal family. No, I'm doing this real reporting because I think Prince Harry and Meghan Markle pose an existential threat to the British royal family. So let's go through this because there's a lot to cover off, Paula. I believe this is a real crisis. Rebecca English of the Daily Mail just says, ignore the conspiracy theorists. There's nothing in this departure, Paula, that is at all unusual. He's just going because he's turning 60 next year. Do you believe that?
No, not at all. The king is doing what he always does, which is when somebody disagrees with him and doesn't kind of kowtow to him, he gets rid of them.
100%. And you could argue, Paula, he has every right to do that. He is the king.
He does.
He is the king. And it is very important that the men in the grey suits agree with him. And this is one of the issues that I've had for quite some time, Paula, when people like Prince Harry try and say, oh, the men in grey suits, they're doing things that the late Queen didn't want them to do, or they're making the king do something. No. You fundamentally misunderstand the point of what these courtiers are there to do. They are there to do what the principal, so be it the late Queen or King Charles or Prince William, wants them to do.
Yeah, you're not right. I'm so sorry. You are not wrong. However, Charles doesn't really listen to anyone except with the massive exception of the public when they boo him. He doesn't look at polls. He doesn't look at how unpopular Harry, Meghan, and even he are. He does not care. The only thing he really cares about is when he's doing a walkabout and people come up and boo him and hold up signs as to what they are angry about. Only then has he actually said, okay, let's take action. Look at what happened with Andrew. And also, look at what has happened every time he's been booed. That's the only time he actually makes a change. It does not matter that Clive has told him in the past, don't do this. This is not the right thing to do. How about this? How about that? No. He's gotten much closer to people who kind of kiss his royal bottom.
The other thing that I notice a lot of, Paula, is people, and I do understand this, by the way, I understand the psychology of it. People who love the British royal family, people who really want to keep the faith in King Charles, because it's quite a fundamental thing, especially for Brits. It's like, we don't want to be treacherous or traitorous, and we want to back our head of state, and we want to believe he's doing the right thing. And so I'm seeing a lot of people sort of insisting online, oh no, of course Charles doesn't want Prince Harry and Meghan Markle to stay at Buckingham Palace. Oh, of course Charles isn't inviting them to Balmoral. And it's like, wake up. He is. So you can either say, we accept that that's his decision as a father, but to just say it's not happening, you've got to be careful, because Prince Harry came perilously close, Paula, to being at Buckingham Palace when that Daily Mail court decision was announced. And it was only wise heads like Sir Clive Alderton who were able to quickly withdraw the offer on the technicality that Prince Harry hadn't accepted in time. But that might not be the case next time, because both sides, Paula, both sides are now briefing that the next visit will be accepted in time and that Harry will stay at Buckingham Palace. So again, you can say, oh, it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. Well, I think it might. I think it might.
I think it will. No, it will.
According to the commentary surrounding this story, a major disagreement has allegedly developed inside the royal establishment over one question. Should the door remain firmly closed? Or should there eventually be some kind of reconciliation? That sounds like a family disagreement. But for the monarchy, it's much bigger than that. Because Harry and Meghan aren't simply private members of a family. They remain globally recognizable figures connected to the British monarchy. Any decision involving them can affect public perception, royal strategy, and the future image of the institution. And that is why this alleged disagreement matters. One side of the argument appears to favor a clear boundary. No return to official royal duties. No restoration of the old arrangement. No ambiguity about Harry and Meghan's position. The other approach is dramatically different. It favors some form of reconciliation, a return to closer family relations, and potentially some future connection with the royal establishment. And according to the claims discussed in the video we're analyzing, senior figures have allegedly disagreed over which direction should be taken. That creates something much more interesting than another royal family feud. It creates a power struggle over strategy. And then there is King Charles. The central question isn't simply whether Charles loves his son. Of course, family relationships are deeply personal. The question is whether personal reconciliation and institutional responsibility can coexist. Charles has spent decades waiting to become king. His reign is now defined not only by his relationship with his family, but by the enormous challenge of preserving the monarchy for the future. And that creates a difficult balancing act. A king can want forgiveness. A father can want his son back. But the institution has to consider something else. Would Harry and Meghan return as private family members? Would they have an official role? Could the public trust the arrangement? And perhaps most importantly, would bringing them closer together heal old wounds, or reopen them? Harry and Meghan's story has never been an ordinary royal story. Their departure from royal duties transformed them from working royals into independent global personalities. Since then, interviews, documentaries, memoir revelations, and public statements have repeatedly placed the relationship between Harry and his family under intense scrutiny. Supporters argue that Harry and Meghan deserve the freedom to tell their story and live independently. Critics argue that they have repeatedly damaged the institution they once represented. And somewhere between those two extremes is the complicated reality of a family that appears to have suffered enormous personal and public conflict. That is why the question of reconciliation remains so emotionally charged.
There's several reasons why it will, Dan. Number one, this has always been the offer on the table for Harry. For TikTok, the last 6-8 years, all right? They've always said, you give us enough time, we can overlook your security. If not, you can stay at a palace, which will always have security. Harry has always said no, because Harry is still fighting for, well, he was still fighting for Ravik. I believe what happened at Highgrove is that he promised his father he would not appeal the case against the Daily Mail. Of course, he doesn't have the money to do that, and that he will also stop fighting with Ravik in his father's courts. So the Buckingham Palace has always been on the table. He's just now deciding to accept this because, frankly, he's run out of options. And also, there is, as you pointed out, there's nothing more royal, more symbolic than Buckingham Palace. And for Harry and Meghan to be seen on the steps of Buckingham Palace, well, that does say, guess what? We are royal. Both things they need. So there's that. The other thing is, Balmoral, if you look at Meghan's carousel of holiday photos, there was one suspicious photo on a lake. There's another point I wanted to bring up that you were talking about. People saying, oh, you're anti this, or you're pro Meghan, or you're pro Harry, or you're anti monarchist. This is baloney. And people need to understand that as reporters, we listen to both sides. We can call things out. But at the same time, I've had people on my show, Paula Froelich Uncensored, like Alison Boshoff, obviously Tom Sykes, he's a good friend of mine, and people get very angry and they go, oh, I can't listen to this. Well, I say you need to listen because Alison and Tom are right down the middle reporters. They are not cheerleaders. They're not on any royal rotas. They are simply reporting what people in Harry and Meghan's camp are saying. And we all need to know that because we know how manipulative they are. We need to know exactly what they want because we're going to start seeing the palace bend to that in a hot little second.
Yeah, because
so
it's
for
happening.
everyone who says, I don't want to hear this, too bad you need to hear it because it's about to happen. And same thing for you when you talked about Megxit.
Well, indeed. And
People
on
were
that-
like, no way.
Yeah, and even before that, actually, it was like, well, who do you want to trust? Okay, who do you want to trust? Do you want to trust the reporters who for years were telling you that everything was okay with Meghan Markle in the royal family? Or do you want to trust the people who actually broke ranks and revealed what was really going on?
Or, by the way, did they already go? Again, look at Meghan's photos from the summer vacation. There was a clear picture of a lake in Scotland.
So you think it is possible that as well as Highgrove, they also made a trip to Balmoral on the most recent visit for the Invictus Games? That is at least a possibility.
I think it's a possibility. Definitely a breadcrumb from Meghan.
Do you think King Charles is making a mistake here?
Yes, it depends. I say, on one hand, my heart says, well, he wants to hang out and meet his grandchildren. And obviously, it's been laid down. You either accept Meghan, you accept me back, or the grandchildren. However, on the other hand, no, you can't have half in, half out. He already made that agreement. You cannot rework it, as I wrote, into a new Highgrove agreement where he can go and do whatever they want in the States and then come back and be a private, happy family in the UK. The other reason is, frankly, Meghan doesn't know how to behave or treat people. So are we going to start setting our clocks as to how many people in the palace are upset and wounded and hurt by her actions towards them?
The thing is, this has been described now, Paula, as Harry and Meghan's distraction tour. And it does really feel like the king is playing into this, because let's just think, Paula, about all of the failures. I mean, the failures are piling up. And actually, this should be a moment where, in my view, and again, this is my opinion, where Prince William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, are winning the day. It's like disastrous court case against the British government, failed. Disastrous court case against the Daily Mail, failed. Commercial failures, like let's do exile. But it was Sabera alone who's come up with this term that Harry and Meghan are on a distraction tour. If you look at this from a macro perspective, what is very clear is that they are on a distraction tour. They're leaking constantly all over the propaganda media, like Newsweek and People magazine, about, Portugal and the kids' upbringing. And it's like, Charles is giving them the ultimate out, when actually I think this should have been the moment where Prince Harry and Meghan Markle were facing a very, very public reckoning for their appalling behaviour over the past 8 years. Instead, I think Charles is really saying, "Oh, don't worry about that. Here's your new path."
I agree with you, but I also think that they are facing a public reckoning with the actual public. The numbers for As Ever are in the toilet. She can't sell anything. I mean, look at her wine. If I were to buy the minimum 3 bottles of rosé, that would cost me, with shipping, $125, which is a ridiculous price for a bottle of rosé, the cheapest wine out there. And they do need a plan, and I do believe this is part of the plan. Now, there have been a ton of scurrilous rumors, like, Harry and Meghan wanted to be the ambassador to the UK or to Australia. No. Yeah, no, they didn't. That's not true. That's way too far away for them. They don't want to go there. There have been a lot of scurrilous things going around. And Paula, what they really want, they want back in royalty, period.
Well, Harry does, and Meghan will use it to make money. And the thing is, I was there reporting, right, at the time throughout 2018 and 2019, when all of these options were being discussed by the British royal family. They were desperate to try and make Harry and Meghan happy. And as you point out, none of these opportunities made them happy, because they wanted exactly what they wanted, which was basically Meghan and Hollywood, Harry ruling the roost in the royal family. So actually, this idea which they were presented of, could you spend 6 months, for example, in Africa? You say you care about Africa. We'll provide you full security, and here's a place in South Africa. Zero interest about it. But look, Paula, you've got explosive new reporting, though, about this financial collapse around Prince Harry and what it's going to make him potentially do.
But here's where this story becomes bigger than Harry and Meghan. The monarchy depends heavily on one thing: stability. Every institution needs consistency. Every leadership structure needs clear boundaries. And the royal family is constantly operating under a microscope. So, imagine being a senior advisor. You aren't simply deciding whether 2 relatives should attend Christmas dinner. You're thinking about the future of one of the world's most recognizable institutions. That means every decision carries consequences. If Harry and Meghan are permanently excluded, critics may say the monarchy cannot forgive. If they are brought closer again, critics may say the palace has surrendered to pressure. There may be no perfect solution. And then we reach the most difficult issue of all: trust. Can trust be rebuilt after years of public conflict? Can private conversations remain private? Can old grievances actually be put aside? And can the royal family create a new relationship with Harry and Meghan without returning to the circumstances that caused the original breakdown? Those questions cannot be answered with a photograph on a palace balcony. They cannot be solved with one family meeting. And they certainly cannot be solved by a carefully worded press statement. Trust takes time. So where does this leave King Charles? If the reports and commentary are accurate, he could be facing one of the most delicate personal and institutional decisions of his reign. Does he prioritize reconciliation? Does he maintain distance? Or does he attempt something in between? A limited family relationship without a return to official royal duties? That middle ground may ultimately be the most realistic option. Because reconciliation does not necessarily mean restoration. Forgiveness does not necessarily mean returning to the past. And family unity does not necessarily require everyone to occupy the same role. Perhaps that is the real story here. Not whether Harry and Meghan will suddenly return to Buckingham Palace. Not whether every disagreement inside the monarchy can be solved. But whether the royal family can find a way to move forward without repeating the conflicts of the past. King Charles faces a unique dilemma. He is simultaneously a father, a monarch, and the head of an institution that has survived for generations. Those responsibilities do not always point in the same direction. And that is why this story is unlikely to disappear anytime soon. Because behind all the headlines, there is one question that remains unanswered. Can the monarchy forgive without forgetting, and can a family heal without reopening old wounds? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain. The world will be watching. If you found this analysis interesting, subscribe for more coverage and commentary on the British royal family.